Pope Francis has celebrated an outdoor mass in front of unprecedented crowds in the Philippine capital Manila. 6 million people attended the ceremony or lined the papal route to Rizal Park, city officials estimate. This is believed to have exceeded the record numbers that gathered for a mass there by Pope John Paul II in 1995. The Vatican said Pope Francis had dedicated the service in part to the victims of Typhoon Haiyan, which devastated the country in 2013. The Mass will be the Pope's final full day in the Philippines, where there are 80 million Catholics, concluding his 6-day tour of Asia. Pope Francis arrived in a popemobile based on the design of the local minibuses, known as jeepneys. Crowds sang and cheered as the Pope stopped at various points to greet worshippers. Some people had camped outside the park overnight to be the first ones admitted when the gates opened early on Sunday morning. "It's such deep joy, so much hope for our country. We really need his message, we need transformation among us, and that is what he told us," one of the worshippers, Chad Sinico, told the BBC, adding, and wiping away tears, really touched. 13-year-old John Paul Jones said, "I saw God in his eyes." Before the final Mass, the Pope held morning meetings with religious leaders and young people at the University of Santo Tomas, which is the biggest Catholic university in Asia. Pope Francis opened his meeting with over 20,000 students by remembering the 27-year-old woman who had died during his visit to Tacloban. Earlier, police had reported that she had been killed when scaffolding collapsed after Saturday's Mass. The Pope then listened to several children speak about their experiences of growing up on the streets. One of the children, 12-year-old Glizel Palomar, wept as she told her story and asked why God had allowed it to happen. A visibly moved Pope Francis replied, "Only when we are able to cry are we able to come close to responding to your question." He added that the world needed to learn how to cry with those in need. Those on the margins cry. Those who have fallen by the wayside cry. Those who are discarded cry. But those who are living a life that is more or less without need, we don't know how to cry, he said. Pope Francis, who comes from Argentina, was applauded when he told students that sometimes men were too macho, and that women had much to tell today's society, seeing the world through different eyes, and asking different questions. On Saturday, the Pope visited a region devastated by Typhoon Haiyan just over a year ago. The Pope said as soon as he saw the catastrophe caused by the typhoon, he had decided to go to the Philippines. He was due to have luncheon with survivors of the disaster in Tacloban but was forced to cut short his trip due to a tropical storm. Before he left for Manila, the Pope held an outdoor Mass for about 150,000 worshippers amid strong winds and pouring rains. During the Mass, the Pope spoke of the terrible impact of Typhoon Haiyan. He told the faithful that so many of you in Tacloban have lost everything. "I don't know what to say, but the Lord does. He underwent so many of the trials that you do." Typhoon Haiyan, which remains the strongest storm ever recorded on land, created a 7 (23 feet) high storm surge, destroying practically everything in its path when it swept ashore on November 8, 2013. More than 14.5 million people were affected in 6 regions and 44 provinces. About 1 million people remain homeless. A national holiday has been declared in the capital for the duration of the Pope's visit.